Good morning, everyone. Welcome to worship, and welcome to those of you who are online with us. And by the way, just to follow up with something Shelley said about not getting the messages with the prayer requests, it also goes out now on the app as a push notification, so it shows up on your phone. If you don't have the app, that's a good reason to get it, okay? And I can help you with that if you need. Just in case you missed the crucial line there, in that, because that noise got too big. So she did have somebody down there. It was her daughter. But her daughter was on the playground one day, and they were playing tag, and she slipped and fell, and that was the end of it for her. Daughter died. And so now all she does is drive around. And oh, by the way, she received the phone call while she was driving, so now she just drives around. This movie is called Gravity. It's from 2013, and the woman there her name is Dr. Ryan Stone. She's played by Sandra Bullock, and she's an astronaut, but she's first a scientist. She's a medical scientist, and now she's become this astronaut. And obviously, she used to work in a hospital. The guy is a veteran commander. This is her first mission. He's a veteran commander of the shuttle, and his name is Matt Kowalski, played by George Clooney, right? They have been in the space shuttle, but the space shuttle has been destroyed. I'm not going to go into that. You can watch the movie. By the way, this thing is like adrenaline packed, but it's not, for me, it's not about the adrenaline. It's about what's going on in that scene that carries through the rest of the movie. And so everyone else is dead. They're the only two survivors of the space shuttle accident. And now they've decided that the only way to get back home is to go across space to the International Space Station, where there's a pod that they can go back to Earth. They can go back to Earth. And of course, her first mission, she doesn't really like space anyway, but she has to do a walk to fix the Hubble telescope. Now they're in open space, and she is petrified, absolutely petrified. Well, it's Matt's job, first of all, to get them to the space station, but second of all, to try to keep Ryan Stone calm. And so he initiates this conversation, which at first sounds like it's going absolutely nowhere, but then start drilling into the most impactful event in her life, the loss of her daughter. Yeah, the loss of her daughter. And it doesn't matter, anything else doesn't matter to her. She's just lost. And when she heard about it in the car. This is how she deals with it later on. She heard about it in the car, got the phone call in the car, and then from now on, what she does is she gets up, she goes to work, and she drives. She can't get past it. It's really, her life has stopped. In fact, a little later on in the movie, Matt will say to her, you know, you've got to learn to let things go. But she can't. It's impossible for her. She can't possibly let it go. And goodness knows she's tried. I mean, I'm guessing that's why she became an astronaut. She had this job working in a hospital, and now she has decided to throw herself into something else in hopes of some kind of direction, except from driving around aimlessly, because the reason for her life is now gone. And so she throws herself into it, and she's good enough to become an astronaut. And I don't know if you know this or not, but it's really the best of the best of the best, okay? And she does that, but still, even after all of that, she finds herself in the same place. Because all the achievements in the world, all the ways that you measure success, and you go out and you do things and you throw yourself into it, none of that. You might think it will work, but it doesn't. In the end, you find yourself like Ryan did, in that car, driving around, and you can't let it go. So let's stop there and sing. Coke, thank you, Pete. I got my water today. Want to start by talking a little bit about last week and an observation we made last week. And it's quite simply this, that when we look at our Bibles, and pastors are particularly fond of doing this, when we look at our Bibles, we tend to think about it and look at it, not as a whole, but we look at it as a bunch of different pieces. So you've got this story here, you've got this miracle there, you've got this sermon here, and another story, and a confrontation. And we take each one of those things as they are, okay? And then we take those pieces and we dice it up into pieces. One piece, we dice it up into several pieces, and then we start sorting through the minutiae to find something to talk about or something that's relevant to our lives. And I'm not dissing that because that's what I do for a living. And in fact, I'll do a little bit of that dicing up here in just a minute. But for right now, I want to tell you that sometimes I believe that when we do that, we don't see the forest for the trees. And I think that's the case here as well, because on its own, that story doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So the story is this. This rich man has a manager, and the manager is in charge of his property. Remember that word property, okay? He's in charge of that property, and he's been playing fast and loose with it, something. And the rich man calls the manager in and says, you know, I've heard about all this stuff. Turn in your keys, clean out your desk, you're done. And now the manager has a little internal conversation thinking, I'm too weak to go dig ditches, and I'm too proud to go beg. And so he decides he's still got the keys. He's starting to clean out his desk. And so he starts calling in the people that owe the master money or owe him something. So he calls in the first one. And by the way, thank you, Adam. My version was a little different than your version. It says, what do you owe? And the guy says, 100 bottles of olive oil. And he said, quick, take your bill, mark out the 100, and write 50. See, he's just made a friend, right? And then the next guy comes in, he says, what do you owe? He says, I owe 100 units of wheat. And he says, quick, take your bill, write 80. And the rich man hears about what the manager has done, and he commends the manager for his shrewdness. Now, as I said earlier, on its own, that story just doesn't make any sense. I mean, what rich man is going to do that? Commend a dishonest manager, and by the way, the word for manager is householder, which means that he's in charge of everything. This guy has put all of his faith and trust, this rich man, into the householder, the manager. And so, he's been playing fast and loose with it already, and now he's, for all practical purposes, stealing from the rich man so that he can make a few friends. So if I'm the rich man, and if you're the rich man, probably what's going to happen is you're going to go back to every one of these people and you're going to say, no, 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 you don't owe 50, you owe 100 measures of oil, and you don't owe 80 bushels or units of grain, you owe 100 bushels of grain. And then he goes to the manager, this is what I would do, this is probably what you would do, throws him in jail, has him arrested. Doesn't even give him a chance to clean out the rest of his desk. That's what makes sense to us, right? Isn't that what you'd do? Sure. But I want you to consider the fact that property in this story may not be what you and I think property is. It's the rich man who has all this property. Okay? So now we're going to look at the bigger picture. And we're not going to look at the whole picture, but we're just going to look at a couple chapters. So back to Luke chapter 15, because this is really sort of the beginning of that story. Luke 15, Jesus is talking to sinners, tax collectors, and grumbling Pharisees who are not happy with the company that Jesus keeps. And he tells three stories. Lost sheep, lost coin, lost son. You might know these stories. Man has 100 sheep. He loses one. He leaves the 99 alone to go out and find the one sheep. And when he brings it back, they have a party. Woman loses a coin. She sweeps the entire house until she finds the coin. She has a party. And then there's the lost son, called the prodigal son. And he has two sons, this master. And the one son asks for his share of the property. And the master divides up his property. And this son leaves, squanders it, right? And then comes back. And then the other son is angry about that because he stayed on while this guy went out and spoiled all of that property, and now he's back as a full son. What's valued here? Is it the property? No. It's the things that are lost, right? It's the one sheep. So much so that he's willing to risk the 99. It's the one coin. It's the son who has gone to a far place and now has come back just to be another servant. That's what's valued. That's the wealth. Okay? Now let's go to 16. So same story, same setting, tax collectors, sinners, Pharisees, but the disciples are also there. So he now turns to the disciples and he tells them this story about this dishonest manager. Okay? So, property. I want to show you the Greek word for property. Could you please put up the first slide? And by the way, in 15, there's three times that the word property occurs, and here is another, or possessions, property, okay? So it's, let me see if I can do this, ark onta. I can read it, I can't say it, okay? And the way that gets translated is the way the other two times, the other three times gets translated, possessions or property, right? But let's break it down, okay? Next slide, please, Shelley. So I'm going to start with the root word, arkonta. Have you ever heard the word like archbishop or the word archenemy? What that means is the one who rules, or ruler, or things that you rule. And the prefix up is under. So it's not property, it's the things that are under the rich man's rule. And now he's given authority to the householder to do, entrusting him to rule over these things. He has the things, he has everything under his rule to manage, to take care of. Okay? That's different than what's going on in chapter 15. So when the son asks for his share of the property, the word is, I won't get into the Greek, but it's stuff. Okay? And then when he divides up his property, the father, the word is biome. Have you ever heard the word biology? So in other words, that's his living that he's dividing up. It's his life. Okay? So we go from the son who's into stuff to the father who gives up his living, to a rich man and a manager who have these things that are under their rule. What does the rich man value? What does the father value? What does the shepherd value and the woman? They value the lost, right? And those things that are found and celebrated, that wealth falls right back into this story, doesn't it? So the things under your rule, not stuff, it's people. It's people with debts, people who are really lost and alone and frightened. Sort of like our friend Ryan Stone, right? Later on, Jesus will call these riches the true riches of heaven. Okay? Isn't that cool? And because he's telling the disciples this, see, he starts with the sinners, right, and the tax collectors, lost sheep, lost coin, lost son. Then he moves to the Pharisees, who's the older son that's not lost, but he's really been lost all the time because he thinks it's all about being faithful and true and doing all the right things, but it's not. It's about who you are, right? Who are you? That's my son, just like you're my son. And then he moves to the disciples, okay, who are the managers of the master and all of his riches. Those things that are under his rule are the lives of the people that he has put on this earth and he cares for. And the disciples are here for the time with Jesus, but they will be put in charge when Jesus is gone. And they're being told to seek the true riches, to see the people, every one of them, because every one of those people are people with needs and hurts and trials and troubles. They may not look like it. They might look like Dr. Stone, ambitious, become an astronaut. Right? But, talk about your iceberg, right? There it is. And that's what Jesus cares about. And that's what we, as his disciples, are called to care about. To seek any and all who are in their car, driving, with no place to go. Let's stop and sing. What's of value to the master? People, right. Lost people, right? People who have a debt. That's what's of value to the master. Those are the things that under his rule. All right? What that means is that he's come for you. He sees you as the thing of immeasurable value, not the stuff that you have, not the way you live your life, not any of those other things that we tend to value and say, oh, there's a fine, upstanding person, or man, that person is happy and healthy and wise, and this couple is perfect together, and blah, 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 on and on it goes. No. He doesn't care about what it looks like. He cares about the things that have you getting up, going to work, and driving without a destination. He cares about you. And I suspect that that's why many of you are here. I know that's why I'm here. So consider that first. Because without understanding that relationship that you have with God and that relationship that He wants with you, nothing else in the world makes sense. Because as much as you know you need to give up, let go of that stuff under the iceberg waterline, sometimes you just can't. And so we need that relationship. We need to know that there is a master who has not only you under his rule, but all that you are, all that you have, and the entire iceberg, what is seen and what is not seen. It might be fear, it might be anxiety, it might be like Dr. Stone, the loss of someone you love dearly. It might be an injury that you've inflicted on someone else, or an injury that's been inflicted on you, and not necessarily physical, but maybe emotional or spiritual injury. All of those things. Those are the things under his rule. And what's more is it's not the younger son's stuff. It's the Father's life, biome, that he gives. Guess what? I say this every week, but guess what? They're all out there with the same thing going on, right? And now, I'm not going to be Jesus, but I'm going to play him for a minute. You are the disciples. And there's this story about a rich man and an unfaithful householder. But the householder, in his unfaithfulness, begins to learn what's truly valuable, what the true riches are to his master. That's also you. Look at everyone you see and forget about how they appear. And yeah, have casual conversations with them. But you know what? They always give you clues. Even in the casual conversation, they always give you clues. And so you can do a little exploring. You can say, how's your day? Oh, it's okay. It's doing fine. And you can say, well, tell me more. And they may say, no, it's really okay. They may say that. But they may say something else, right? Or you might see them just get nailed by their boss. And you might say, you okay? And they'll say maybe, yeah. You can say, oh, come on. Be a commander like Matt. Tell me the story. Right? And pretty soon, a conversation that seems to be going nowhere drills in to the deepest portions of that human heart. And my friends, that's what the Master cares about. Those are the things under his rule. And he sees them as riches and gems. Why? Because once they are seen by the Master, and you are the Master's hands, once it's seen by somebody else, that becomes the gem to God to bring that person home to him. And for that we give him thanks and praise. Amen.